All right, here's the latest portal pursuits for the Longhorns. We told you it's a dead period this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, as far as players on campus. So you're going to see some of this slow down. The big national portal news yesterday, Jack, the kid Leavitt, the quarterback from Arizona State to LSU. Sam Leavitt, not surprising. This has been a name you've been hearing. He was the number one player in the portal. Once Cam Coleman agreed to come to Texas, Sam Leavitt was the biggest fish out there. He lands with Lane Kiffin at LSU. That's not a surprise. But as for the Longhorns, Oklahoma State defensive end Wendell Gregory, he was in town over the weekend. He was a kid who was an all Big 12 freshman, freshman all Big 12 member. Had a nice first year in Oklahoma State, but he's originally from Marietta, Georgia. Thought to be narrowing his choices and was going to decide between Texas and Kansas State maybe yesterday, but that didn't come down. And according to my buddy Bobby Burton at On Texas Football, the sophomore to be is going to go back in the open market and see if he can find a better deal, I guess is the way to put that. So that didn't happen. Also, the Cal linebacker that we've told you to keep your eye on, Cade Uluave, committed to BYU late yesterday over Michigan and Texas. And then the Yale offensive lineman that we told you about, he was in over the weekend. He committed to Oregon earlier yesterday. So Texas still in the market for offensive line. There's no doubt about that. Also, a 23rd player into the portal for Texas, Warren Roberson, the defensive back who had the really good Citrus Bowl. That came out as a surprise. He is into the portal. Warren Roberson. Thought, Jack?
The only thing I know about that guy is he committed like 3 special teams penalties a game.
A game, yes. He did have the big game in the Citrus Bowl.
He did.
But he's into the portal. So 3 players into the portal that we told you about that then pulled their names out and agreed to terms with Texas. Junior safety Derek Williams, sophomore edge Zena Umozolu, and Kobe Black. All are coming back. So 23 in, 13 or 23 out, is the way I should put it, 13 out. And so with 23 players headed elsewhere, Jack, 5 of those are running backs. You realize that? 5 are running backs. Jarrett Gibson, Trey Wisner, C.J. Baxter, Ricky Stewart, and Christian Clark.
Right.
4 are wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Parker Livingston, DeAndre Moore, Aaron Butler, and Jamie French. Most of them have already found new homes. If you haven't heard, Trey Wisner's going to Florida State, Jarrett Gibson to Purdue, C.J. Baxter, Kentucky.
Interesting class, Kentucky.
Yeah, well, Will Stein. Will Stein's got Austin ties, of course, Lake Travis before he was at UTSA and then up in Oregon as the offensive coordinator. Christian Clark just entered the portal, so he does not have a new spot. Parker Livingston, we know, is going to Oklahoma. Aaron Butler is going to Oregon State, it appears, and Jamie French to Michigan. DeAndre Moore has not yet made a decision. But so it's a fair question. Why did Texas allow productive players like DeAndre Moore, Parker Livingston to find, they've made them strong offers, they believe, but at the same time, it wasn't what the market value, the DeAndre Moore and Parker Livingston thought. But it's pretty clear Texas wanted to use that money to go all in on Cam Coleman, right? Pull the resources and bring the explosion back to the receiver room. So, but here's the thing with Cam Coleman. Sure, he's an athletic freak, built to be a Sunday wide receiver. We had our buddy Rod Babers on the show yesterday. He said he reminds him of George Pickens starter kit. But you know what? It's more than that. He's the biggest name in the portal, and you had to, go through the courting of Cam Coleman. But here's the deal: when Cam Coleman hits the field for his first practice at Texas, Jack, he'll immediately become the best wideout Sark has had at Texas on 50-50 balls. Immediately,
right? Absolutely.
I mean, he's also arguably the best that Sark will have had at Texas in winning against man coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Xavier Worthy would have an argument. Matthew Golden probably would have an argument there. But so you have a receiver who now wins 50-50 balls and wins against man coverage. This is what Cam Coleman brings to this offense. Not just a big name. It makes them at some level indefensible. I mentioned the Cowboys and George Pickens. What did George Pickens do for the Cowboys offense this year? Made them undefensible at times, right? It made... Because you had to either roll coverage to CeeDee Lamb or to George Pickens, who's a great, 50-50 ball, go up and high point the ball, moss people, catch radius guy, and then CeeDee Lamb, such a great, running back with the ball in his hands and tough to cover. And that, what else did that do? That made Jake Ferguson, almost fringe Pro Bowler. Guy had 9 touchdowns this year. When you add a guy like George Pickens, this is what Cam Coleman can be for the Texas offense. You realize this, 11 times last season, at Auburn, Cam Coleman was targeted on contested throws 20 or more yards down the field. At 6'3" and 205, Coleman caught 9 of them.
Man.
11 passes, 20 or more yards down the field. He caught 9. He also forced numerous pass interference calls during the year. That doesn't show up in the stat page. 4 of those penalties came in the end zone. So, again, this guy is a coverage nightmare. And that's with a inept quarterback and a coach who's both are gone. Jackson Arnold and Hugh Freeze at Auburn, he still was putting up numbers. And let's look. You combine Cam Coleman. This is like the Dak Prescott versus Arch Manning here. How about Arch Manning's prowess throwing the ball down the field? Arch Manning completed nearly 45% of his 65 downfield throws last season. 45% of those 65 throws. So 934 yards and 13 touchdowns. He had a PFF grade, Arch did, of 91.5 on pass attempts of 20 yards or more behind the line of scrimmage. And that's without a receiver like Cam Coleman. The best deep threat last year was Parker Livingston. Ryan Wingo was supposed to be, but he had a hard time catching the ball. Parker Livingston became the deep threat down the field. Cam Coleman is certainly an upgrade from that in every category. Also when I mentioned Coleman could be the best against man coverage Sark has had, Coleman's PFF grade, Pro Football Focus, 79.1, nearly 80 against man coverage. 14 catches, 163 yards, and 2 touchdowns on 18 targets at Auburn. That's better than any Texas wideout in 2025 by a lot. So that's what you're adding. So again, kind of the George Pickens thing. What else did George Pickens do for the Cowboys offense? It made the offensive line better, and it made Javonte Williams kind of a spare part running back, a 1,000-yard running back, and a Pro Bowler. Again, when you have those two type of wide receivers, you have Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley, and now Cam Coleman. It's a math equation problem or math problem for the defense. How do you? Because I just gave you the numbers on Cam Coleman against man coverage. You have to roll coverage to him. He's going to beat your best corner most of the time. And so you're going to have to roll a safety his way. Well, that opens up the box. Now tight ends are getting man coverage like Nick Townsend. Now, Ryan Wingo is seeing more individual coverage, Emmett Mosley. And it's up to Arch Manning now just to find the open man like Dak did this year. And let's also remember Arch Manning brings his legs to the game. This makes this a really, really difficult offense for anybody to stop in college football. I'm not going to say it's going to be the best offense in college football, but if they stay healthy, they have a chance. And I know they have to get the offensive line solidified, but they do bring 3 starters back. They're still trying to add players through the portal. They added 1 so far, but that's why they did it. And we saw the parallel I would give is the Cowboys, what they did when they added George Pickens for Dak Prescott to go with CeeDee Lamb. This is what the Cowboys now have, or the Texas Longhorns now have, with Cam Coleman opposite Ryan Wingo, along with Emmett Mosley, the tight ends, and the running backs, which we're going to talk about here in a second.
Yeah, and Colin Simmons would probably be the best defensive player on the Cowboys right now.
Yes, that's true.
Like you said, just the more things you have to account for, the more things will slip through the cracks for a defense, right? I mean, if you have 2 great receivers you have to cover, and you have to worry about the quarterback's legs and the running backs in the pass game, well, guess who's going to be wide open? A tight end. And if you start worrying about the tight end and you start worrying about the running backs, you're going to forget about Arch Manning. He's going to be open for a rushing lane if it opens up to him. So just the more things that you have to worry about, the more chance you have to mess up.
Well, and the emergence of Arch Manning with his legs and his ability to scramble and buy time, that's an element the Cowboys don't really have. Dak Prescott's pretty good at it. Arch Manning's elite with his legs and running. It's almost like having Josh Allen on the Cowboys, potentially the college version of Josh Allen, the ability to push the ball down the field and throw it anywhere, but also as he continues to improve, Arch Manning, like Josh Allen can do, take off and run. Like we see, Drake May does this a lot in the NFL now, Caleb Williams, and now you have elite receivers around it. All right, so the other question on the offense, when you're trying to add explosion, why did the Longhorns let Trey Wisner and C.J. Baxter and Christian Clark get to the portal? Well, that was in order, I think, to allocate dollars to the Arizona State transfer Raleek Brown and to NC State transfer Hollywood Smothers. I mentioned we had Rod Babers on the show yesterday, former, of course, lifetime Longhorn, former radio partner of mine, now doing great work of the Third and Longhorn podcast and at On Texas Football. Listen to the numbers Rod gave us yesterday, Jack, talking about those 2 running backs, how dynamic they are, how explosive they are in comparison to the guys who are leaving the Texas backfield. It's not to knock Trey Wisner or C.J. Baxter. They just don't bring the elite level of explosiveness. Listen to Rod Babers yesterday with us here on Game Time.
This duo is actually going to remind a lot of Longhorn fans of 2024 with Jaden Blue and Trey Wisner. Longhorn fans don't realize about that duo, and Sark has always said it, that a running back is the most underutilized position in the passing game for him, or a weapon in the passing game for him. They both were top 10 in running back targets in all of college football. Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue, both of them had close to like 50 targets. I think you're going to get that in this with this duo as well with Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers. Both of those guys top 20, I think top 22 actually in running back targets. I think that'll increase in Sark's offense. Both will be really good with that dynamic, but you're adding the explosivity back in the backfield. I'll give you a couple of stats, guys, that I love. So if you're talking about Hollywood Smothers, he is tied for top 10 in the Power 4 in 20-plus yard rushers, 30-plus yard rushers, 40-plus yard rushers, and 50-plus yard rushers. Right? Wow. And Raleek Brown is top 10, if you look at it, in 20-plus yard rushers in the Power 4 and 50-plus yard rushers. He kind of jumps back up there. He's got 3 of those. So I think what you're adding back to the offense is the explosive element, and you're going to have the +1 in the running game with Arch. They're going to add the read element, the quarterback run element to everything, inside zone, outside power. And if you look at your averages, yards per rush are always better when you add the read element, the quarterback run element. So I just think the running game overall now is just going to be, you're going to have more big plays, more chunk yards plays. You missed that last year. Last year you only had 12 20-plus yard runs. Overall, for the whole team, guys, 12 20-plus yard runs. Raleek Brown had 12 of them on his own last year.
All right, so there it is. Rod Babers breaking it down. Raleek Brown with more explosive runs down the field of 20 yards or more than the entire Texas team. So that's the overhaul, Jack. That's, and it's not done. We know they still are looking for a big, sturdy running back. Someone, kind of a downhill runner to add that element to it, because both Hollywood Smothers, the NC State transfer, and Raleek Brown from Arizona State are both similar in body type.
Right.
You probably still, because they do have Derek Cooper, the 5-star freshman coming in from Miami. You also have James Simon still in the backfield. But you're probably looking for a fifth back for new running backs coach Jabbar Jalouk, someone, big 225-pound running back. One of those downhill, one-cut running backs. They're probably looking for that in the portal. And obviously, interior O-line help, more linebacker help is still needed. But, man, they've added they've done the heavy lifting.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
Through the transfer portal so far on the offensive side. And we're talking about an all-in year for Texas with Arch Manning in his final year and Colin Simmons. This is how you go all in, but also you bring in Will Muschamp to help elevate the defense and maximize the havoc ability of the defense. Sark wants to play more man coverage. Sark wants to and they've recruited, corners like Cade Phillips and Grayson Littleton. They went and got Bo Masco, who's one of the best man corners out of the Big Ten from Rutgers. They want to be able to play more man coverage and really get after a defense or an offense. And so you combine the two, the more explosive offense. What Sark is visioning with Will Muschamp in the defense is creating more havoc and unleashing, Colin Simmons and this pass rush to create more, negative plays and turnovers. That's the combination Texas is hoping with, the special teams that needs to continue to improve. That's the goal. That's what this overhaul's been about.
That's right. And do we have a deadline date for the transfer portal here?
It closes on Friday.
Friday, okay, great.
But once you're in, as we've said, that doesn't end the portal pursuits.
I'm just worried about
what really ends the portal pursuits is timing. Like they still are supposed to go to class.
That's right.
And enroll at school.
On MLK Day, the Tuesday after.
Right, and so school
Tuesday
starts. That's why the portal closes, and that's why they do this. People have asked a million times, why do they do this portal while the college football playoff is still going on? Well, by calendar, they have to do it mid-semester. They have to do it between semesters, fall and spring. And that's right now. But the timing would be, as long as you can get yourself enrolled in school and classes, that's the timing. But the portal, to put your name into the portal, ends on Friday. So I don't know what time that ends, but if your name's not in the portal by Friday when it closes, you can't be in the portal. Unless you sue and probably win. Probably.
Like Trinidad Chambliss is probably going to find his way back to college football.
We'll see. He's suing. Because that's what we do. We sue.
You could just be QB4 in the draft this year. It's fine.
Possible. Yeah, because when Sam Leavitt and LSU, Texas has to go to Baton Rouge. Arch Manning against Sam Leavitt, Lane Kiffin against Sark. That'll be fun. And obviously, if Trinidad Chambliss were to win his waiver claim, it'd be Trinidad Chambliss, Kejuan Lacey, and that Ole Miss team coming to Austin there in October, part of that unbelievable October stretch of home games for the Longhorns.